we're almost out of Q3. Uh, we're almost out of Q3 of 2024. So that means we're 4 months away from 2025. So I think this is a great conversation for not only right now, but also for us to start thinking about how are we going to be setting ourselves up individually on a personal level or in a business level when it goes into 2025. So thank you today for being a guest with me today, Ashley. I'm super excited to have this
Yeah.
conversation.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited too. I feel like this is just so well timed to your point. Like, set yourself up for success now. People always
Yes.
try to wait until Monday, wait until the new year, wait until
Yeah.
something. And I feel like a game changer and people who are successful versus people who remain stagnant are that they just start where they are with what they
Yeah.
have. And I
Hmm.
think people are hungry for
Yes.
change and hungry to feel better and really grow and be fulfilled.
Yes. No, I agree wholeheartedly. I think that we're in this space now where we're like, okay, we're having to almost really truly, for lack of better wording, put on our true entrepreneur hats. It's
Absolutely.
not just coming easily. It's gonna be digging in, into understanding what our goals are, is into understanding like what we're really up to, and being really intentional. So I'm excited about this. So I would love for you to introduce yourself. And for anyone that's new to Ashley, this is your time to say, hey, this is why I'm so amazing.
Oh, well, thank you. My name is Ashley Shehab, and I am a certified life coach. I specialize in clarity, authenticity, and getting unstuck. I really believe that if something isn't happening in your life, it's because you are lacking clarity.
Yeah.
And I feel like that pertains to anything. It can pertain to your business, it can pertain to just, your corporate career, it can pertain to dating, health, anything. You're lacking clarity, and usually that clarity is something within you that needs to shift. So I work with men and women, I work with teen girls, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people who are going through a major life transition like a divorce or a health event, and helping them to just get clear on what comes next.
Yeah.
Coaching is very focused on meeting you where you are and helping you to move forward, as
Yeah.
opposed to therapy that's more about taking you back to your past to help you to manage your present. And I
Yeah.
just love this. Like, I am so passionate about mindset because I have seen how this will completely transform your life in the most magical of ways, like ways that
Yeah.
actually defy logic.
Yeah. No, it's so, what you're saying is so valid. And that's why when we first, so we connected on at a networking event, and on here, I always say that we need to be out here networking, that it is a really great way to impact. And that's why I think sometimes too, with like past, everyone just focused solely on social presence, but then never take the time to get out into their local communities so that they can meet some great people that either can be individuals you can collaborate with or your potential clients. Yes, you can have people
Mhm.
that you can work with all around the world, but if no one in your local community even knows, like, you're missing out on a really great opportunity. And when I was thinking about mindset and we are talking about like what are the things you're passionate about talking about, mindset is so important. And I don't think that regardless if you're an entrepreneur or not, we're not always present to how this really leads how we go after the things that we go after or
Totally.
do not even go after. Because if we don't even think that this is something that's possible, you'll do just enough, and then what happens is then you get the result that you really didn't want, but because you are self-consciously thinking
Yep.
it wasn't going to happen, that it just doesn't happen the way that you experience. So like, is that something that you see is very common for people that
Oh,
are challenged?
absolutely. Absolutely. We all are operating life where we are playing out patterns and we
Mhm.
have our own belief systems.
Yeah.
And those belief systems, a lot of times too, are completely subconscious. Like, we have no idea what we're thinking and like what is actually like creeping in that is holding us back. And so
Mm.
I feel like we have to know what our kind of like energetic minimums are so
Yeah.
that we can then move past them, move through them. Like, if you set this goal of like, oh, I want to make $10,000 this month, but I've only ever made $5,000, and you don't really believe you can actually make the 10,000, you're going to hit
Yeah.
the 5,000.
Yeah.
Like it's going to give you exactly where your energy is with
Yeah.
everything. And this is so interesting because it's sneaky. Like I
Yeah.
doing what I do, I have to do a lot of work on myself, obviously. Like I
Yeah.
feel like I lead the way. I go first so that I can
Yeah.
show my clients where to go. And I've
Yeah.
been shocked by the sneaky beliefs that I have that really operate under the surface, and they do keep me from going on to that next level.
Yeah. And I think that when it comes to how, like, it's about our triggers, because that is like what happens is like we don't even understand that in order to get to that 10,000, there's something that we're going to be bumping up against, which can then potentially be a trigger. So like all of that stuff is really succinct. Like a little short story, like I've had this thing like dating is interesting. However, I was like, I've heard people say, adjustments and all these different things. And a part of me was like, well, maybe when it comes to dating, I'm going to have to start dating someone that may have a little bit of different beliefs. And then last weekend, I was in this place and I was just like, I, if that's what I accept,
Exactly.
that's what I'll receive. And then I started being present to, if I only see X, then I'm only going to focus on X.
Exactly.
And if I actually see that, wow, there are some great guys that are out there that are this, that, and other, they may not approach. And for anyone that's listening to this, don't think this is only about dating.
Yeah,
This
this
is
applies.
about with everything. So I think again, when people listen to these conversations, they only look at it as a one area of their life thing. In reality, this is stuff that really shows up. And I've heard people say, how you do one thing is how you do all things. So if you say like, oh, there's no opportunities out here, there's no clients out here, all you're going to keep doing is looking at people that just can't afford your services, compared
Exactly.
to being in a space of abundance of like that it may take work to find those clients, or maybe I might have to shift to be in front of those clients, but those clients are out there. It all depends on what you choose to focus on. And would you say that's something that comes in place when we talk about mindset,
All
is
the
on
time.
our focus?
All the time. I mean, it's really, I do a lot of work with my clients on their belief systems because we get so drilled down on our beliefs that we cannot see outside of those beliefs. And when we're drilled down on a belief, we're going to constantly be getting evidence to reaffirm that belief.
Yeah.
So if we say something to ourselves, like something that I had to work on around dating, but again, this can translate to anything, is I used to say, there are no men in Dallas. There are no men in Dallas. And
Mhm.
then I had a coach challenge me on that. And she's like, is that 100% true that there are no men for you in Dallas?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I guess I believe that there could be one man for me in Dallas. And she's like, okay, then that's your belief. Like, feed
Mhm.
that. And just that shift completely transformed my dating life.
Yeah.
Or if you think about things like, okay, yeah, like there's, there's so many people that do what I do. There's like
Mm.
no one available to me. It's like, okay, is that 100% fact?
Yeah.
Like, what is it that you have that I don't have, that you don't have, like that
Yeah.
somebody else doesn't have? Like, it's really challenging these beliefs and understanding where they've come from.
Yeah.
Like, I really feel like our lives are kind of like a tapestry with all these different threads woven through them.
Yes.
So you could have a thread stemming from a traumatic event that happened with your parents, or like a bad breakup, or
Yeah.
like a bad accident or something like that. And you could be like, oh, well, I've worked on that. Like I went to therapy, I worked on that. But what you don't realize is that thread is tied to so many other things in your life. Like
Yes.
something that happened to you with your parents in childhood could literally be affecting your ability to make money now.
Yeah.
Everything is interwoven. And I think
Yeah.
if you really want to rise and have a limitless life, which I do, you do,
Yeah.
limitless is my word, you have to go in and identify these threads and just untie them and untie them from your core so that you can be free.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Yeah, and I some people don't like when I say this. However, this is my truth. I believe that entrepreneurship isn't difficult. What makes it difficult is all of the things that we experience that either says what's possible, what is not possible, how we view ourselves, what we think we can be, what we think we can achieve. That's why for some individuals, they can jump into it. Yes, they've had previous life experiences, but it's all it's interwoven. So like if someone's had specific skills, that soft skills that they worked on in like corporate America or just in life in general, it makes it a little bit easier for them to transition. However, they're going to have different things in their lives through the journey that's going to require them to grow. And the longer we avoid growing in that aspect, it makes it harder. And that's why even like when we think of direct sales, like some people, they'll jump from one company to the next and they think it's the company. In reality, it's like, no, you keep hitting the same thing. And instead you say it's the company instead of it being you. And it's okay if it's
Exactly.
you, but what are you going to do to get a different result? So I think that that is something that how you said that is interwoven is thinking, okay, what are the truths? What are the stories in which I'm making up? So that you can
Yep.
truly figure out like how do you get yourself into the position to have the things in which you truly say you want.
Exactly. And your analogy of like jumping from job to job and
Yeah.
hitting up against that same wall, I mean, that certainly applies to dating as well. It's like
Yeah.
dating all these different guys,
Yeah.
but you keep hitting that same wall. That wall is a wall that you put up,
Yeah.
and only you can take that wall down. And it does require time, energy,
Mhm.
intention, introspection, and it requires you to be different, do different,
Yeah.
experience different perspectives. And I think a lot of times when we're entrepreneurs, we think like, oh, I have to do this all myself. It's like, no, you don't. Like when you actually have the team around you to offer you the other perspectives and make this easier for you, this is a
Yeah.
game changer. And
Yeah.
hello, tax write offs. Like I'm
Yes.
offering a tax write off for entrepreneurs because this is business coaching, entrepreneur coaching. And
Yes.
it's this is the kind of thing that makes or breaks a business. You can have every system in place, you can have all the education in the world, but if you're not growing and expanding, I feel like that is what will crush your dreams faster than
Yeah.
anything else.
100%. So I do have a question then. So for those and it leads perfectly into this. So for those who are not familiar with the term of a growth mindset, how would you best describe this?
To me, growth mindset is being awake to life, all of life. It's really sitting in the driver's seat of your life and saying, okay, I am willing to look at all the things, including the things that I don't want to look at. Like, I'm willing to look at my spending habits, even though I don't like money. I am willing to look at my dating patterns, even though I really just want to blame all the men instead of
Yeah.
looking at myself. Like,
Yeah.
I'm willing to actually own where I am in my life and be willing to just look at it. Like that really
Yeah.
is the growth mindset. I will look at it because
Yeah.
once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can't put it
Yeah.
back under the rug. Like it's
Yeah.
out now. So you have to do something with it. And it's not your job to necessarily didn't know what to do with it. That's where
Yeah.
I come in. Like this is where teams of people to help you can come in. But it is your job to look at it and to be aware of your feelings of like
Mm,
if this is making me feel stressed out or this is making me feel less than or this is making me feel upset. Why?
mhm. Yeah. I, and you know what? I haven't heard people say this. I've not always, but I love that you said like once you've allowed yourself to open it, it's so hard. And I've said that to people. Like I don't. It doesn't feel good. I would, we're not gonna lie to you. Like digging into this, that's why I get why people run away. However, being on the other side of it, there's never fulfillment, there's never joy, there's never you seeing what you really want. It becomes more of that victim kind of thought process.
Exactly.
However, when you allow for yourself to go through the ugly of it, and it can just open your eyes, but then sometimes it can be like, oh my gosh, I don't want to work on it, but it's that's the murk of it. Like regardless of anyone's faith base, the
Mm-hmm.
reality of it is that even with that, you're going through a journey and a walk. And those
Mm-hmm.
journey and walks with discernment and correction,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't feel well. So it doesn't matter if we're talking about growing just as an individual, we're growing spiritually, growth doesn't always feel good.
Yeah.
However, growth is necessary. Nothing about being in your comfort zone, which is, I always joked with, I've done like personal development therapy and all those other things over the years. And I would always say, like, the biggest thing about your comfort zone is that it never is a space of fulfillment.
Never.
It
Literally.
never is like, you never are you in your comfort zone and you're like, everything is amazing. Usually people have glasses on looking on the outside at everything else. And I feel like sometimes in your comfort zone, that's where envy
Mhm.
and jealousy and doubt, all of those negative connotations will fall into place. Is that something you see
Totally
too?
agree. Totally agree. I think that personal growth and healing is truly the journey of a lifetime. We
Yeah,
are meant to continually evolve.
yeah,
However, with that said, I do believe that not everyone is meant to rise.
yeah.
There are people who are willing to accept the status quo, to
Hmm.
stay stuck, to numb themselves to life, to go to
Yeah,
sleep. But
yeah,
that's not the people listening to this. That's not you
yeah,
or I. Like, there's a
yeah,
reason that you're here listening to this.
yeah.
And it's knowing, okay, if I'm going to go into the darkness, I
Hmm.
want somebody to go in with me who has a flashlight and is going to
Hmm.
show me the way and
Yeah,
who's been there before and has come out the other side, has helped other people come out the other side.
yeah,
Because the other side, it's like short term discomfort
yeah,
for long term massive gain.
yeah,
And that's what we forget. Like, if we're staying in our comfort zones, that's long-term discomfort.
yeah,
Nothing, comfort zones are just familiar. That's
yeah,
it. It's just familiarity. So if you're familiar with being broke, that's your
yeah,
comfort zone. If you're
yeah,
familiar with being single and not wanting to be, that's your comfort zone. Like, if
yeah,
you're familiar with parents who like fought all the time and got evicted from your childhood home, that is your part of your story. And
yeah,
that is familiar to you. And we will find, consciously and subconsciously, we will find ways to keep reinforcing our beliefs and our patterns, because otherwise we're crazy, like if we're
yeah,
not reinforcing our beliefs, then we're wrong. And
yeah.
we want to drill down on those beliefs and not be wrong.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly. And so for this other term that we often see, like I know we've all had at some point saw the photo of fixed mindset, growth mindset. You've explained about the growth mindset. I think we tiptoed around fixed, but for people that aren't aware of fixed mindset, how's fixed different from growth?
So if growth is like I'm awake to life and I'm in the driver's seat, fixed is like I'm asleep in the trunk and I don't know what's going on. Fixed is sneaky, you guys.
Yes.
Fixed is so sneaky because fixed is like I'm just going through the motions. I'm in survival mode. I get up, I go to work, I come home, I eat dinner, I doomsday scroll, I watch Netflix, rinse and repeat.
Mm,
This is like fixed mindset. And fixed mindset is like there is no space to even like contemplate anything.
yeah.
Contemplate like life being different. Contemplate, what is making you feel the way that you feel. It's just very, I'm in the dark, I'm asleep. I'm likely numbing in some way. Numbing can
Yes.
be substances, obviously, but numbing can also be scrolling, TV,
Yeah.
shopping, working out. There's a
Yeah.
lot of ways that you can numb yourself, and there's a
Mhm.
whole lot of ways you can avoid what is
Yeah.
actually going on. So I think if you're like hearing this for the first time and you're like, fixed growth, it's like maybe ask yourself, like, am I looking at things?
Mhm.
Am I avoiding things? So, like, what am I avoiding?
Yeah.
Am I giving myself that space to contemplate, or am I literally just going through the motions as to the point where like a year could pass and I could wake up and be like, what just happened?
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love how you talked about numbing because I don't think a lot of people are present to
Yeah.
how they're numbing.
Yeah.
And I was even speaking to someone, I was like, because I don't drink or any of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm out here feeling life like
Yeah.
100%. Like we all have can fall victim to doing numbing in some kind of capacity. But that's why I think it's important for you to work with someone to learn skills to break out of that. So that you're even being present to masking, because that's another term as well
Yeah.
in the therapy space. So like often, you know, I can catch myself when I am masking, learning how to remove the shame around the fact
Mhm.
of what even acknowledged it, like what even started that. Because sometimes what happens is that with our mindset, there's triggers. Like everyone's a little different. You can speak on that a little bit more. But I feel that often my masking or numbing that's non alcohol or any of that involved, it comes from a trigger. So, and the trigger
Mhm.
doesn't have to be something drastic. It can be that I'm doing something outside of my comfort zone. So I'm scared.
Exactly.
So
But
now
yeah, a
I'm
trigger can be
retract.
fear.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
you're spot on. You're spot on. I feel like honestly too, what people don't realize with like the numbing and the avoidance is again, it's very sneaky. Like
Yeah.
I live this in this world all day, every day, and I can feel now at this point. I describe it like I'll get this like glimmer of something that I need to look at, whether that be a trigger or whether that just be getting out of my comfort zone and doing something new. And what I
Mhm.
almost feel like is like ice descends. It's like this
Mhm.
ice comes in and wants to freeze it so that I can't
Yeah.
see it anymore. And I
Yeah.
have to be cognizant of what that feels like because when I start feeling that ice come in, I'm like, oh, there's something I need to see here. There's something that I need to do and
Yeah.
work through or face or whatever. Because
Yeah.
I'm trying to go somewhere and this
Yeah.
ice is blocking me. And if I'm not super vigilant to it, I'll miss it.
I love that. And that leads perfectly into the next question I wanted to talk about because, and I hope that for people that are watching, like you're seeing this in different areas of your life. Like we've spoke about it in your personal, we've spoken about how this may show up even in your professional. And it doesn't have to be an uncomfortable conversation. Everyone has different family structures when it comes to these conversations. Sometimes it can feel as if it's taboo to talk
Right.
about this, and you think that strength is through enduring in an unproductive way. There's
Oh,
a way to persevere, and there's a way to to struggle through the mayhem. But for anyone that's watching, what are some practical steps someone can actually start doing today to start shifting towards a growth mindset?
I would say if you are brand new to this, or you're like kind of waking up and you're like looking around and you're like, my business isn't growing the way I want it to, or my dating life isn't going the way I want it to, my health isn't going the way I want it to, my marriage, my kids, whatever. I would say do what I like to call like sprinkles. Let's start sprinkling
Yeah,
in just some space for you to observe and contemplate. So a lot of times
yeah,
people when they're first waking up to this, they're like, "Wait, what? Like this is something else I have to do?" And really it's like, "No, no. We can it's a little sprinkle like on the top of the ice cream."
yeah,
So just give
yeah,
yourself 5 minutes of actual 5 minutes of uninterrupted time where you like sit outside or you're walking the dog or you're putting on your makeup or
mm,
whatever and just kind of contemplate and ask yourself, this is the most important question I feel like we can all ask ourselves. How do I feel? How do I feel right now?
mm,
How do I
yeah,
feel about this thing? How do I
yeah,
feel about marketing myself on social media? How do I feel about going to this networking event? Does this feel good? Does this not feel good?
yeah,
Contemplate this because there
mhm,
is so much answer here. A big thing that
yeah,
I do with my clients is I help them to get out of their heads and back into their intuition, back into their feeling body. And so
mhm,
this is a question I have them ask themselves like all day, every day, even in terms of like, oh, it's lunchtime. What do I feel like having? Do I feel
mhm,
like having chicken salad? Do I feel like having tacos? And then it's
yeah,
like, if you're like, oh, I feel like having tacos, run with it. Don't
yeah,
say, well, I guess I should have the chicken salad because it's going to go bad if I don't eat it today. That's
yeah,
getting in your head. that's talking yourself out of things. And yes, this is a silly example of what to eat for lunch, but if you're talking yourself out of what you want for lunch, imagine
Yeah.
what else you're talking yourself out of.
That's so true. And I'm glad that you said that because it is a choice. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think that sometimes we can get so wrapped up in just living and not realize to the choices we're making willingly or unwillingly. And then also, too, how taking it back to the interwoven, like, depending on what you may have experienced in life, you may have been told that this chicken salad, like, your choice
Yeah,
may not even really be your choice. It may have been
exactly.
something based off. And that's the part about doing this work is super important because, like, one thing that I recently became present to was I was raised in a blended household, and my father was Muslim, so I was raised in
Mm,
that. And growing up as a young lady, it wasn't encouraged for me to embrace being feminine.
nope.
So majority of my, like, I had clothes I wore with my mom who was Christian, and I had clothes I wore at my father's house, which everything was just covered.
Yep.
So as an adult now, as an adult woman who's 40 something years old, I'm constantly having to check myself on how I want to show up in the world as a feminine being, because that wasn't something that was nurtured. So if I see myself as a business professional that steps into certain rooms, it's okay to not want to be or look a certain way. That's fine. It's not about that. But it's like, am I willingly making this choice, or am I still the little girl
Mm-hmm.
that was told not to embrace? So when we think about how we even show up in our own business, some of what we're bringing in is that child, and we're
Exactly.
making choices. So, like, even when we're saying, how am I feeling? It may even be taking the time to think about, like, where do those feelings even, what are those feelings even rooted in?
Yeah, it does. I mean, that's such a great example because we all can relate, I think, to that in
Yeah.
different ways.
Yeah.
I remember hearing a story in like a personal growth setting that was like a little girl grew up and her mom would make a roast every Thanksgiving or
Yeah.
whatever. And her mom always cut off the ends of the
Yeah.
roast. And so when she grew up, she was cutting off the ends of the roast. And then
Yeah.
one day she was like, "Mom, why do we even cut off the ends?" And the mom was like, "Well, I had to cut them off because the pan was too small. I don't know why you're cutting them off because your pan is big enough to put it in there."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, like we learn so much from our parents, from our teachers, from well-meaning people who love us.
Yes.
But we're no one here is perfect. We are
Yeah.
all flawed individuals. And what worked well for like your father and what he really believed and like
Yeah.
filled his soul
Yeah.
might not be how
Yeah.
you feel and what feels feeds your soul. And that's okay. But if
Yeah.
you don't take the space to contemplate this and become aware of this, you're going to keep playing out these patterns and they're not even yours.
Yeah, 100%. So I hope for anyone that's watching that that was helpful, because it's something that we're not always aware of, like, some people, that's the reason why they don't like going to networking events, or they don't realize that what they're bringing into those spaces is that childlike version of them, not really the adult version of them themselves and what they really want to accomplish in their life. So I think that that's super important. So for you, like, how do you try to coach your clients to overcome self-doubt and limiting beliefs that are holding them back?
So I really believe in going to the root and extracting this thread once and for all. I am not
Mm,
about quick fixes. I am not about band-aids and I'm not about like blanket approaches to everything.
yeah.
Like I want to know what makes Jesse Jesse. Like
Yeah.
why are you wearing this outfit? Like why are
Yeah.
you showing up this way? Like what
Yeah.
is it about you that is making you believe these things? And
Mhm.
then what is more empowering to you that feels like maybe you're stretching it a little bit, but also feels realistic? So with
Mm,
my clients, we really go, I mean, it's a journey. Like
yeah.
I love it. I think it's so much fun. And when you sit here and watch people say, like, oh, like, I'm cutting the roast just because my mom did it. It's like you almost like see something leave their energy fields. Like
Yeah.
they free up. they light up. It
Yeah.
gives them other lenses to
Yeah.
view life through. So we really get in there. This is the real deal.
That's good to know because it's not intended. Like if it was so like jumping through the garden with wildflowers, and
Mhm.
everyone would be doing it.
Mhm. Exactly.
Unfortunately, everyone isn't going to.
Exactly. And it's not the same for everybody
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out like, well, what is it for you?
Yeah.
And where do you want to go with this? I mean,
Mhm.
it's such these kind of processes, it's so transformative. I mean, it will quite literally change your life. Like I am a different person now
Mhm.
than I was before I started my personal growth journey. And the thing with starting a personal growth journey is a lot of times people start it with like, reading a self-help book or something like that, which is great. Don't get me wrong. I read
Yeah.
tons of books, but those are the blanket statements. And a lot of times you don't know how to apply that to your life,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you just flat out forget. You
Yeah.
read a book and you're like, this is awesome. Yeah, I'm going to start doing this. And then you do it for like a week, and then life gets lifey, or you hit that obstacle and then
Yeah.
you forget this ever even happened, and you go back to your default settings. And
Yeah.
your default settings are often being managed by the wounded child, not
Mhm.
by your authentic self.
Yes, I agree. And for the people that you've worked with, what would you say is like the common hesitancy that people face when it even comes to like doing this kind of work? 'Cause I'm sure there's some walls that people face when it comes to, or even the better question would be like, what have you found to be the common denominator for someone to realize, like, wow, I probably should be talking to someone on improving my mindset? What do you find is like that aha moment where sometimes people are like, okay, I need to work with someone. I need to work with you, Ashley.
Yeah, I think the aha moment, it's either they just feel totally blah and
Mm.
exhausted and burned out and they're tired of feeling that way,
Yeah.
or something big happens in their life. Like they go through a divorce, they go through a health event, or they're contemplating something big, like they're
Mm.
contemplating starting a business, they're
Mm.
contemplating moving across the country, and they're like, I don't know. And my clients are go-getters, like entrepreneurs, we're go-getter types.
Yeah.
So they know how to make things happen. So when things are not happening for them, they're like, wait, what? Like normally I know how to make decisions. Normally I know how to make things happen. Why am I
Mm.
struggling with this? And I
Mm.
think that that is really like the indicators of, if this isn't flowing with ease, you're
Yeah.
hitting something. And I'm not
Mm.
saying life is always going to be easy, but usually it ends up being a lot easier than like you think it's going to be, because
Yeah.
you start operating, once you go through this process, you start operating from a place of more alignment versus
Mm.
like doing just to do and spinning
Mm.
your wheels and getting nowhere.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. And because it's and I think it's almost like when you're in the flow of attacking mindset, you almost even learn to acknowledge wins
Oh yes.
and
Love that you said.
like it almost gives positive affirmation. Yeah, it reaffirms you in a positive way. Because sometimes what happens is that when we're stuck and we're fixed, we assume that everything could go bad. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just and that's the mind. That's what, like, why do our minds just naturally just go there? It's the whole flight or flight thing, essentially. And I'm like, dang it. I get it for like wildlife, but now I don't.
We've evolved.
I'm like, we evolved. Like, why is this still happening?
I know. I mean, really, the brain can easily be rewired
Yeah.
when you're doing things kind of like the right way and working with someone that knows how to kind of rewire that negativity. But I think that something that we really need to be doing is celebrating our wins. Like, we definitely need to be celebrating when the positive things happen, when we achieve our goals, when we even get close to achieving our goals, because I do feel like the universe is always trying to give you evidence. And so take that evidence. Ooh, Are you okay? We're back. No?